Let's talk some companion planting basics. Now, I could spend a whole day and write a whole book just on companion planting, and I just released my book for beginners where I made sure to touch on the basics of companion planting. So basically what companion planting is us working towards a main goal, which is creating diversity inside the garden. And by doing so, I want you to think of it like this. We are basically trying to mimic nature. Because if you go outside and you look in your backyard, nature does a really good job without any human intervention on maintaining itself. And by implementing companion planting, we're actually making the garden kind of work for itself. So what are some of the benefits of companion planting? Well, it helps you ward away some of the unwanted pests in your garden. It helps attract predatory insects that help depopulate the ones that you don't want in your garden. It also helps you to pair plants together that will benefit nutrient-wise or even enhance the flavor of each other. You see, research really tells us that about 90% of the bugs that we see in the backyard are beneficial. They're doing a really good job of what they're supposed to do, maintaining this ecosystem, right? The other 10%, well, they're the unwanted pests, and a big portion of that 10% is invasives. One of those invasives being the little stink bug you see, which is the squash bug. So you see, by creating that diversity in your garden, you can help maintain that 90-10 rule. Because if you think about it like this, if you were to plant all of the same crop in the same place over and over without any diversity, you're concentrating that 10% in your garden. And if your approach is pesticides, you are definitely killing off your beneficial pollinators, which means that you plan to hand pollinate everything, right? And think so. Besides that, pesticides cost money, and you're really just repeating the same process over and over. You're killing bugs, you're having to hand pollinate. You're killing bugs, you're having to hand pollinate. You're poisoning our soil too. I want to share with you some of my very favorite best companion plants, and you'll notice a trend that majority of them are all either herbs. So the number one on the top of my list is dandelions. If you didn't know, dandelion has an extremely deep taproot. So what does this mean? It's bringing up other nutrients to the surface of the soil where your other plants can access it. It's also bringing water. Yeah, Monsanto, it's not a weed. It's also attracting pollinators. You need those for yield or harvest, because we're not hand pollinating everything. Next up, basil. Main reason for the basil is because I always plant this with my tomatoes. A lot of people say that it enhances its flavor, which I find funny because when we cook, what do? We pair those guys. My main reasoning is because it wards away the tomato hornworm. Tested this out back in 2021. I planted roughly 72 tomato plants. For every 3 to 4, I planted a basil plant. I've seen one tomato hornworm all year. Another one of mine is sage. Anywhere that I plant strawberries, I will always plant sage. This does a really good job of keeping slugs away. And then good old rosemary. If I plant corn, you bet your butt that I'm going to plant rosemary nearby because it does a really good job of keeping the corn earworm away. Borage and marigolds. Why? They're edible. 2, I have chickens. If you don't know anything about chickens and marigolds, look into it. It's worth the research. Not only that, they do a really good job of helping keep away the squash bugs and the squash vine borer. And yes, guys, that's 2 different bugs. And with all those beautiful flowers, we're attracting pollinators, which helps increase our yields. Next up, cilantro. And why do I love cilantro? It's so aromatic. We love it, right? We love that pungent smell. We love the taste. Bugs hate it. One of those bugs being the Colorado potato beetle, and the flea beetle, and the squash bug, and the squash vine borers, and rabbits. And lastly, dill. Dill is one of those plants that I always plant with brassicas. Brassicas oftentimes will attract the cabbage moth, and well, guess what doesn't like the dill? The cabbage moth. Another part of companion planting is learning to not pair certain vegetables or plants together simply because they probably belong in the same plant family, which means they compete for the same nutrients. They also attract some of the same pests, which leads me to this chart. Now, if you want this chart, it is under my free downloads on my website that you see right there. So what is this chart about? This is me breaking down plant families, right? Because even though I've been doing this 20 years, ain't no way in hell I'm remembering every plant in every plant family, okay? And when I'm doing crop rotation, this chart saves my butt. But it also helps me with organizing for companion planting. Because again, one big part of companion planting is also keeping certain plants away from each other because they compete in nutrients. And a good example of this is, for instance, when I'm planting anything out of the nightshade family, I tend to stick with one plant out of that. For example, if I have a 5x15 bed, I'm only usually going to stick to planting either tomatoes or tomatillos or just tomatoes. I'm not going to stick to planting tomatoes, peppers, and potatoes all in the same bed. They're going to suffer from the same diseases, they're going to attract the same pests, and they're going to compete for nutrients. So only a few of them are going to thrive while the other fail to thrive because obviously the others are stealing the nutrients. Again, this list does help with crop rotation, but that's another video, another topic for another day.